You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast exploring Scripture and all things related to it. New episodes are released daily. For more information, check out glossahouse.com and subscribe to our channels on Spotify and YouTube. Welcome and enjoy.
Shalom and welcome to this week's SLA Insight. I'm Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and we're continuing to talk about ways that language output, promotes language acquisition. And I've talked about how language output promotes deeper learning, how it promotes automaticity, and how it provides opportunities for interaction, which all directly improve or help with acquisition. I'm going to start today talking about a few things that allow output to indirectly affect or help promote language acquisition. And today I want to look at how output provides more input. I've talked in the past about how important input is in language instruction, especially comprehensible input. That is deemed the one thing that is absolutely essential for language acquisition. And just by way of a quick review, comprehensible input is understood by the learner. That's the comprehensible part. And the input it's dealing with the receptive skills of listening and reading. And Creation's input hypothesis talks about how the best input for acquisition is I+1, or input that is 1 degree more difficult than the learner's current level. And we also talked about how maximizing comprehensible input is going to be better, especially if you can achieve an immersion type environment, if at all possible. However, if students themselves are not producing output, and again, this doesn't happen right away, but if they don't get to the point of producing output, this is going to put the burden of production on the teacher only. So only the teacher is going to be providing input for the students. Now, in episode 46, the previous episode, I talked about how output provides opportunities for interaction. These interactions can be teacher to teacher or student to student. But if the only opportunity for interaction is with the teacher, then the input is necessarily going to be limited, especially if the class is larger. However, if classmates are producing output, there's more opportunities for interaction and more opportunities for other students to receive input. The students can be talking to each other in the language while the teacher focuses on one or another of the students, or going around and checking and making sure everybody's doing what they need to or answering questions. But if they can also provide more opportunities for receiving input that is tailored to the student. Teacher output, if you're talking a large class, teacher output has to be more general when talking to the students. But one-on-one interaction is going to produce input that is best tailored to that particular student. And this can come from other students. So think about it. If a teacher has a large class, say 20, 25 students, and is going to talk to the whole class, it has to be more general. If he or she talks to one student, tailors it to that particular student, the remaining 24 are not getting tailored input. And so if you've got students working in pairs or small groups, they can tailor their input to their conversation partner and provide input that is very, very close, if not precisely at I+1. A teacher is going to produce input, but it may be I+0 for this student, I+5 for that student, and it's not going to be as effective at promoting acquisition. So one benefit of students producing output is that they're providing input for their classmates. There's a secondary benefit, however, in producing output in what's called auto input. In other words, if you're producing output, you're also providing yourself with input. This, for one thing, your own output can trigger what's called spontaneous playback in the second language in the mind of the learner. Creation calls this the din. So you say it, but then in your head it's kind of echoing back at you, or it comes up when you least expect it, like the song stuck in your head. But it will come back, and you'll be hearing it in your mind, and it's reinforcing that structure as you're learning it. So as a student is speaking to another student, he is also learning or hearing his own words. As a student is writing, also a form of output. A student is writing to another student. She's reading her own words as she's writing them. And so output also promotes language acquisition through input to other students, and input for themselves in auto input, self-input. So several benefits here. First, more opportunities to receive input from each other if they're able to produce output, if they're encouraged to produce output. There's also going to be more opportunities for students to be receiving tailored input, that precise I+1, rather than hoping the teacher hits somebody and producing input or producing output for the students to receive as input. It also promotes, as I've talked before, about interaction and the possibility of negotiation of meaning, which really brings in the precision for I+1. And then also producing output promotes more opportunities for students to receive auto input. So as I did with the last episode, I want you to think about two possible scenarios. And again, they're going to be sort of polarized on either end of the spectrum. But this case, we're talking teacher-only output, which provides input for the students, or students also providing output, which will be input for the other students. So scenario one, we only have the teacher producing output and giving input to the students. So the teacher is speaking to the students in L2. The teacher is reading to the students in L2. The teacher may be providing books or reading materials for the students in L2. The homework is in L2. But the students are not producing any output in L2. Everything they produce is in the mother tongue, L1. Now, a very early level classroom necessarily looks like this. Students cannot produce what they have not yet learned. So in a very early classroom setting, there is going to be a lot of teacher-fronted activities. Students are in the silent period, the pre-production phase, before they can get to output. And so this first scenario where it's teacher only, keep in mind this is necessary at the early stages. But as the students progress, they should eventually come out of that silent phase and be able to start producing output for each other, with the teacher. If they're not, if it continues with teacher only through the entire class, even in a best case scenario, the teacher can only do so much. And so my guesstimate, and this is very unofficial, my guesstimate, you could probably only get 50 to 75% of class time in the target language. And if our goal is immersion, we're falling short of that. Let's consider then scenario number 2, where we have students also producing output, again, after their silent period, after they've acquired enough that they're ready to start producing output. It's going to fill in a lot of the gaps where L1 had been used or where there had just been silence. You now have the potential, and again, let's talk best case scenario, the potential to hit 95%, maybe even 100% immersion in the classroom. The output that was produced by those students is now providing an input-rich classroom, richer than what could be achieved with a teacher only. So, in conclusion, this week I've looked at another role of output in the classroom in that it provides input and more input than what a teacher could provide on their own. In upcoming episodes, I'm going to look at how Output provides language diagnostics for teacher and students. Another role, perhaps an indirect role, that Output plays in acquisition, especially in this refining role of getting accuracy nailed down for students in their language learning. So I hope you can join me for this next episode. In the meantime, have a great week.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glossa House can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glossa House offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glossahouse.com today. Glossa House, language resources for the global community.